So, and there's other key differences between them. I'm going to switch to another image here. This was provided by Leimoni. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That monkey.
And
thank you. I like my monkey.
Did you take that?
I did.
That's
Yep.
a nice shot.
Yeah, mine is just a little dark, but he's gonna help.
it's a little bit dark, but
Super excited.
but not too dark. So there are some key differences other than the color gamut. RGB being a larger color gamut. CMYK also has an issue with grays. I'm going to duplicate this image so you can see the difference. Okay, so crap. My pen's a little touchy, so I'll convert this one to CMYK. Okay. Now, another big difference is gray tones in CMYK aren't gray. For instance, if you neutral out the values, if I just do a hue saturation, and just remove all saturation from the image for both, you'll see that the values, the actual gray values, are different. One is a true grayscale image, the RGB one. The CMYK is not. That's because in CMYK, to get an actual neutral value, you have to have more cyan than magenta and yellow. Magenta and yellow will be pretty much the same value, and cyan will be just a little bit higher. And you can see that if you go into your color picker here, and I just move my cursor all the way to the left so to have a true gray image, a gray swatch here, we can see that our RGB values are 110, 110, 110, and our CMYK values for the same color are 57, 49, 48. And as we scroll up, you can see most of the time the magenta and yellow are exactly equal. Sometimes they'll fluctuate. Yellow might be a little bit more, magenta might be a little bit more, but basically they're equal. And then cyan is quite a bit more than magenta and yellow. So zeroing these out isn't going to make a neutral value, and that makes a huge difference when color correcting, especially if you're trying to remove color casts or just trying to make neutral areas more neutral. It makes it a lot more difficult and a lot less accurate to do it in CMYK than it does in RGB. Plus the fact that working in CMYK, there are adjustments and tools that aren't available in CMYK versus RGB. So RGB, you have access to pretty much everything, where in CMYK you don't. So another reason to work in RGB. Any questions about the differences? No? Okay. No. Remove that. Okay, now I'm going to go over a few tools to use when color correcting. One is the info palette, and we have the info palette right here. And then with the info palette is the eyedropper, which, there we go. Let's see if forwards move.
I know it. Why did they move them around?
To confuse us.
Just to confuse you, and take longer to learn it, I guess. I don't know. By default, if you lose, huh?
Sorry, the Kiko monster is the same. So if you know the Kiko monster, you're fine.
The Kiko monster?
Yeah, you know, like
The Kiko monster?
Kiko monster. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Just like key commands. Key commands.
Oh, key commands.
That's true.
Wow, I might. I heard.
Yeah, I speak fluent Marianne.
Okay. I heard the Cookie Monster was doing something. I was like, okay. All right, that's.
I did.
All right. With the eyedropper tool, by default, if you don't change it, when you if you lose your preferences or you're just first installing Photoshop, by default it'll be set to point sample, and point sample is I'm gonna zoom in real close to an area with some color. As you can see, there's a lot of variance in areas of color. So point sample really, it's the most accurate, but it's not accurate to your intent. Generally, when you're using the eyedropper, you want to see what the relative color is in that area, and point sample is going to actually tell you what the value of that particular point is, or that 1 pixel. Which you could, if this image had a lot of noise, especially like red and blue noise, red and green noise, you could be picking up noise. You could be picking up stray pixels here or there, and the value that you're looking at in your info palette might be off a little bit. One more thing about the eyedropper is there's a color sample tool that allows you to lay points down, so that you could keep the values there. So now I can change it from point sample to let's say 11 by 11. We'll just go a little extreme. Usually you want to be like 3 by 3 or 5 by 5. It depends on how large of an area you're trying to sample from. The larger the area, the larger the average you want. Most cases though, 3 by 3 or 5 by 5 is fine.
That's pixels, right?
Right. Right.
So it would also depend on how large the image was.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. If you're working on web images or smaller images, you definitely want to use a smaller size, like 3 by 3. Or if the area you're trying to take a sample from is a smaller portion of the image, then you'd want to use a smaller sample point or smaller average. In this case, we'll just do 11 by 11 to exaggerate the point a little bit. So when I switch this, we should see a shift in color. Right now, it's the number 1 in the info palette. We have 116, 99, 91. Let's see if it shifts here. Okay, there it didn't. Well, you don't have a lot of noise in your image, so that's good.
Okay, good.
But as you increase the average, we see I changed it to 51 by 51, and it did shift quite a bit. So some of the points did shift from going to point sample to 11 by 11. But generally 3 by 3 or 5 by 5 is good for that.
Mike, I've got a question. How
Sure.
do you clear those color sample points out?
You hit this clear button that's right next to
Oh.
that top.
Okay.
Or if you have the color sample tool and you want to move them around, you can always click on them and move them around. But if you do want to clear them, yeah, you can just get the clear button. So
I was looking for it like as I'm in commit mode. So.
no. Well, no, it's an option for it. But one more thing about RGB and CMYK and these color samples is that when we're working in RGB, most of our products, well, it's shifting a little bit, but most of our products right now are ended up being for print, even though that is shifting. So we want, when we're color correcting our images, we want to make sure that there's no surprises when shifting those, when converting an image from RGB to CMYK, because just doing a conversion, you can get quite a bit of color shift, especially in skies and in reds and stuff like that. You can get a considerable color shift. So you do want to make sure that you have, under the view menu, you have it set to proof colors, that's turned on as you're working, and then your proof setup is set up to be your working CMYK. So that's important. So we're going to turn proof colors on.
So I have to have again. Sorry.
Just go to view and then go to proof colors and just click it and it turns it on. If you see the check mark right there, that means it's turned on.
So it's good to always work. For example, us, we should always have that.
Yeah.
Proof color.
Web, right?
And if you're doing web, you can do a custom, and you can create your own one for sRGB, for instance.
Okay.
You can do save, and then you can save it as an sRGB, and then it'll be listed as sRGB in your view settings. That is important because there is a shift from going to Adobe RGB to sRGB, so that it is important to do that as well if you're working on a web project.